Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of Port Jervis City School District Board of Education. At this time, I'd like to call the budget hearing to order. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll move it.
Bill Honifrey, second by Flo. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Rydell and team, you're up.
So I'll take this. So this should not take very long because you've seen this presentation and there has not been any changes to it. So as you can see up on the screens, this is the budget, the public hearing for the 2022-2023 budget. This screen here takes a look at the journey that we've taken since January, going from our rollover budget to our working budget to our proposed budget, which was the last time we met. And tonight our budget is proposed $82,289,067. Taking a look at this screen, this is the revenue side. Where is this money coming from? You can see a $3.4 million increase in federal aid. Our fund balance is pretty much staying the same, along with others, pilots. And the big thing on this is that our tax levy for the second year in a row is a 0% increase. So just take kind of note that the increase in the state aid is approximately $3.4 million, and the overall budget is going up $3.3 million. So they're pretty much the same. The budget is going up the difference of state aid. And once again, 0% tax levy this year, second year in a row. This kind of takes a look at the snapshot of the increases from last year's budget to this year's budget, broken down into instruction, employee benefits, debt service, general support, transportation, interfund transfer, and once again, there's the overall budget increase from 78.9 to 82.289. This screen, which I've shown before, just shows the last 9 years of budgets. Shows the top line is this next year's proposed budget. It's an increase of 3.3 million, or a budget-to-budget percent of 4.19%, 0% tax levy. What I did is this presentation is on the board docs, and it will be put up on our website with links to the revenue and the budget overall line items. So I won't bring that up here, but if you want to, these links will bring you to the revenue side of the budget and all the lists of the proposed expenses to the budget. Like I said, there's two ways to get it, from the board docs attachment, and as well as I will have it up on our website through the business department. When you go to the ballot, this is what you'll see. There are three choices for the board, and there are three candidates there, so you do the math. That's a sample of what you'll see to elect board members. Also, there were two propositions. The first one is the budget, the 82,289,067, and the second proposition is what we're asking of the community is to vote on and have permission to spend a maximum of $10 million towards our project, our capital project. Just what really needs to be known here is that we most likely will not reach that max of 10 million. It's just an authorization to spend 10 million, and that this will have zero tax increase to the community. It is going to come from our fund balance. Our fund balance is approximately $19 million. So if we use the 10 million, you do the math, it's we'll get us down to $10 million in fund balance. So the money's there, no tax consequences, no additional tax or burden to the community. The vote is from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Tuesday, May 17th. The locations are here on the website, HB, the high school, and the middle school. If you have any questions, Mr. Rydell is listed first, but please reach out to me first. My email is jtim@pgschools.org. I have been getting questions, which is great. It means people are watching and who have great questions. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Does anybody have any questions about the presentation we just gave? Okay. At this time, I'd like a motion and a second to adjourn the public budget hearing, please.
I'll move it. Second.
Bill Harris, second by Bill Honifrey. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, I have a motion and a second to resume regular session.
I'll move it.
Judy, second by Flo, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carried. This moment, may I ask everyone to stand for the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. Judy, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, may I have an approval, motion and a second to approve the board meeting agenda, please?
I'll move it.
Judy,
Second.
second by Jason, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, student rep report, Molly?
Hi, everyone. Hope we're doing okay. So for the month of May, we're gonna have a bunch of things and events going on. So tomorrow we're having the National Honor Society dinner and induction. I think around 6-ish. We have the Kuykendall Awards, the 5th. Our nomination is Rachel Fuller for the high school. The Powder Puff game is gonna be at 6:30 on Chase, the 5th as well, it's Thursday. The SATs are gonna be held in the classes and everything at 7:30 this Saturday. We're having the art show, the 13th in the cafeteria around, I think, 6 to 8, if anyone's interested. We're having the high school band concert the 17th, which is a Tuesday. And then the seniors are having their senior trip at Busch Gardens from the 19th to the 22nd, and then progress reports are going out the 20th.
Thank you. Lots going on, gearing up for the end of the year. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the capital project presentation. Mr. Rydell?
Yeah, I'll just serve as the introduction for our guests. So there were some questions and some comments at the last board meeting, and really it prompted us to have the suggestion to bring experts in the field and those that are actually going to be working on this project to a meeting. And we have other plans for some subsequent meetings, both this spring and perhaps in the summer. But wanted the board as well as the public to hear from those that are truly experts in their field. So we have with us this evening Lou Rodriguez, he's the president of Palumbo, and Dennis York, he is going to be the project manager also from Palumbo. We're also joined by Stephen Martinez. He is going to be the project manager that's overseeing the air quality monitoring that will be taking place throughout the abatement portion, the asbestos abatement portion of this project, which will be done exclusively during the summer months, as has always been the plan. But I don't want to steal too much of what the message will be from our guests. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey now. So we're starting a great project, and that's really great. But what happens when you start a great project, the community is always concerned about safety. So I think tonight what we want to do is really talk about some of the work that's going to be happening at the middle school and just how we're phasing the work. So there's two components here. It's really talking about how we're phasing the work, any hazardous material work in particular, phasing that through the summers, and then really talking about general construction happening through the year. And then Mr. Martinez can talk to a specific protocol that's required by the state for clearances for any of the areas that we're working. Dennis is really going to talk to big picture site containment phasing. And again, this is a great situation that we're in, embarking on. It's a great project. There should be a lot of positive aspects to it. And as we go through this, we just ask that of course, the Board of Ed with their support, the community, be understanding. It's construction. And today, construction is probably the hardest thing that we're dealing with. Dennis, I'll hand it over to you and you can talk a little bit.
Should I do the requests or whatnot, you know, sing something for you? Again, thanks for having us. We're actually gonna break ground on the project on June 27th, which is right after school graduations, I think the 25th or something like that. One of the first things that happens during the, at the groundbreaking is gonna be asbestos abatement in the existing building. Everybody hears the word asbestos, and the first thing they do is like, oh my God, it's a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing to get asbestosis, right? And asbestosis or lung disease, lung cancer or mesothelioma are terrible things caused by asbestos. We're gonna do it as safely as possible. And earlier I went through an abridged version of how it goes, right? The first thing that's gonna happen is gonna come in and do background sampling of the air. They're gonna guy, being Steve, is gonna come in and sample the air outside the building, outside the work area, to get a baseline of what's in the air there, right? Then they build barriers. These are not flimsy barriers you see in a store. These are hard wall barriers that can be semi-permanent. They're insulated. They have 2 layers of 6 mil fire retardant polyethylene on them. They have drywall on them. They have plywood on them. They're semi-permanent structures to the building. Then the actual workers come in and they'll start the abatement. When they come in, they also bring what they call a scrubber with them, or
Negative air unit.
negative air unit is the proper word, but I just call it scrubbers, which is basically a unit that has expands in it and filters. And you hear the word HEPA thrown around quite a bit. You can buy a HEPA vacuum cleaner at Lowe's or whatever. Not quite the same thing. These HEPA filters filter out 99.97% of particulates, which is stuff floating in the air, 0.3 microns in diameter. And a micron is 1 millionth of a meter. So that's small. Take another step, there's 25,000 microns in 1 inch. So that's what it cleans up, that small of a particle. Excuse me. And again, when it's tested, if it's not clean, guess what? They go back and they clean it again. They clean it again. There's no work is done in that area unless it's clean, totally clean, according to Steve's, what he says. He's the final say on it. The asbestos-containing materials placed in plastic bags or double wrapped in polyethylene or airtight packages. It's wiped down, it's taken out, it's put into a container. Not in a dumpster, it's a container that nobody can get into. The work area is vacuumed again, with HEPA vacs, wipe clean. Again, it's cleaned at least 3 times. The workers, when they go into the area and they come out of the area, they go into a shower, then into a negative air. So everything gets sucked into the building. As we, excuse me. As we go to the building, the existing building is sucking air in through their unit ventilators, right? So that's positive pressure being put inside the existing building. I say the existing part, that's the part the students are in. The part that doesn't have students is us, the workers. That's under negative air. So these machines are constantly sucking air and discharging out the back of the building. So it has, it's a vacuum basically. So any dust that is created would go to that vacuum, get filtered out, and then the air gets dumped out the back. So the air that comes out of these units is the cleanest air you can possibly breathe. Except it sucks out 99.97% of the stuff, so it's the best thing, it's the cleanest stuff in the world. There's no further activity in the area until samples are returned as clear. In case of failure, the air is reclaimed, and then recleaned and resampled until it comes back as clear. And once that happens, it is clear, we got a barrier removed, then the trace can go back and work. Until that happens, there's nobody allowed in that area. According to New York State SED 155.5, which governs construction in schools, we cannot do asbestos projects with students in the buildings. I've been with Palumbo 5 years. I've never done abatement with kids in the building. I never will. Questions, anything, comments? That's easy.
I think, yeah, that is what's important, just 2 phases of abatement.
Yep. I'm sorry, yeah.
Summer of 2022, summer of 2023.
Right, we're doing, basically, it's the north half of the building, all 3 floors, we call it Area A. It's from the center staircase, there's a new staircase going in at the middle school. That stair that goes up to the second floor for some reason that doesn't go anywhere else, that's coming out. There's a full set of stairs going in there. So from that side, from the right-hand side that facing the stairs, all the way to the left, all comes out, gets abated and rebuilt from June of this year to August of next year. The abatement is just this summer though. After that, general demolition gets done and construction gets rebuilt, gets put back in. The following year, 2023, July 3rd of 2023, we start in Area C, which is the south end of the building. Same thing, just flipped around. Questions? Comments?
My name is Steve Martinez. I'm with AECC. You don't need my microphone. You can hear me, right?
Well, they'll need to hear it on TV.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
My name is Steve Martinez. I'm with AECC. I'm the environmental side of the project. So what my role is in the entire capital improvement is to make sure that the abatement contractors do their job by the law, legally, how it has to be done, so nobody's affected negatively, especially the children. So before kids even decide, before we even bring the kids back in September, this building will be cleared and there will be no asbestos in the area that we're working in. And the way we do that, as they said, we run backgrounds, air samples, before the project starts. That's our baseline. We do it inside and outside. It's not just the outside. We do them both. So we know where to measure the air quality at the end of the project when we're running clearance airs. In order for it to be cleared by the state of New York, it has to be less than 0.01 microns are allowed to be on those cassettes. And when we run it, we don't run it just for dust. There's a special cassette that the state of New York requires that we run in schools for large projects. They're called TEMs. It's a different microscope that reads the actual sample itself and tells you that's an asbestos fiber. It's not dust. So we know there's no asbestos. But there are cassettes that are done in some projects, it's not done in a school, that they just run them and they can come back and they don't know whether or not it's got dust on them or asbestos. These, during this project, we'll know for sure there's no asbestos because it's required by the state, okay? The way everything's set up, we come in, we run backgrounds on June 27th, the abatement contractors come in, and what they do is they mobilize. So they ultimately have to set up the work area, right? They build a decon, and it's exactly what it sounds like. In order for you to walk into that work area, you have to go through the decon. You have to shower on your way out. You don't have to shower on the way in. You just got to suit up. So they wear Tyvek suits, and they wear respirators. The only people that are allowed inside that work area is somebody that has a hard card that has been certified by the state saying you're allowed to go in there, you've been medically cleared to wear a respirator so nobody has a heart attack and dies, right? Because that's on your face pretty good. And you know what you can and cannot do inside that work area. Water has to be used, you can't have a dusty area. They will literally put 6 mil poly, 3 layers, so it's not just 2, it's 3 layers inside the work area to make an envelope seal. Then they put these, what they're called negative air units, or unit ventilators, and they suck all the air from the outside in. So nothing should be going out. It's only coming from the inside, because you do have an entrance, right? It's called the decons, but there's layers of flaps there too. So if you were to see it, it looks like the flaps are being sucked towards the work area, and that's what it's supposed to look like. That means we have a good seal. Plus, there's it's called a manometer, and we read the levels every hour to make sure it's below 0.05. If it's not, that means there's a hole somewhere, and I stop everything. And we go and we look, and we make sure everything's good to go. They check all the criticals, and then we go back, and once that's established again, then they go back in and they start working. Okay? Does anybody have any questions in regards to?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
When is this happening?
When is what happening?
All the testing, everything you're talking about, when is it happening?
It's happening from the date, that date, June 27th, that's the mobilization date, till the end of the project. Every single day while they're working, and when they're not working, we're checking the air.
So to be clear, second, third week of August, you give us clearance
Correct,
prior to allowing any students or staff
correct.
back in that building,
That's correct.
right?
Yep.
And that's gonna happen the same thing in summer of 2023.
That's correct.
You're
Yep.
gonna, there's a start and a finish where you're saying that building is safe
Yes.
prior to allowing anyone back in that building.
That's correct. Yeah, we're not allowed to clear the building until we know there is no asbestos fibers floating in the air, and the project's complete. That portion of the project is complete. So, I don't work for the asbestos contractor, I don't work for the construction manager, I work for you guys. I'm hired directly by the board for you guys to make sure there's no conflict of interest. My ultimate goal is to make sure that that is a safe environment for your children to go back into. I have 3 children that went to Wallkill, one's still there, and they're doing abatement, and when they do it, I make sure everything's done correctly as well. So I understand that there are concerns. And asbestos is a scary word. It's the greatest mineral on the face of the earth. It's when it gets broken down and becomes friable. That's when it becomes an issue. Okay? And because it's plaster, it will become friable. And that's why it's full containment, and everything has to be connected to one another. That's why they have a connected decon. Sometimes you'll see asbestos projects going on. You'll see, if you've ever seen it, you'll sometimes see it looks like a trailer where they would put cars in. They make that their remote decon. Cannot have that in this kind of a project. It has to be connected to the work site.
Another question.
Yes.
I don't say that. Belt suspenders.
Belt suspenders, I don't
when
usually
you-
wear them, but only if I have a tuxedo.
When you're done,
Yes.
have you been with districts that continue to do some type of air monitoring?
Yes.
Throughout construction, and it's more not for asbestos, but air quality?
Correct. So actually, it was a job that we did last summer, and it was at NFA, so Newburgh Free Academy, removed a tower, like not as old as this building, but it was an older building loaded with asbestos. And they're putting on an addition. They built one of the walls that he was talking about. It's almost like a permanent wall. You couldn't walk through that thing if you wanted to. They were concerned that there might have been exposure, or they wanted to make sure there was no exposure that leaked over to the classroom areas. So what we did is we went in and ran air samples after the abatement was done, and just for peace of mind to know that there's not an issue. And we can do that as well. And that's ultimately up to the board if they want us to come in and do that. But I would almost guarantee we have no issues, but peace of mind, it's not a bad thing to do once in a while, is check the air periodically. Any other questions other than you're done? Yes, sir.
These cassettes that you talked about,
Yep.
how often are they used throughout this summer project?
Every single day. So every shift. So for instance, if I start at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? They go in there, they're gonna start the abatement or they're doing prep. Those cassettes go on before they can even go into the work area. So now, once they're on, I'm like, you're good to go. They go in, do whatever they have to do, whether it's prep or abatement. Those are running the entire time of that shift. Unless there's a breach. Then we stop, we take those off, we send those out, they fix the breach, we put a new set on. So those just can't continue to run. We want to make sure that everything's good to go. So every shift, technically, you'll have, it's a large project, there'll be at least 5 on the perimeter. And then depending on how many air units, negative air units, they need to get the negative pressure. So each bank will have 5 hoses go to it with 1. So if they have 15, I'll have 3 extra pumps there pulling the air, making sure it's good. And that's done every day, and they're sent out, and we have the results the next day.
And I'm guessing all those results will be available to the board?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
Even if you came to the site and you said, hey, I want to see the results, they're there. They have to be there by law. So I have them, they have to be up within 48 hours. So, and that's what we do. And that's what, when the inspectors come, that's what they look for to make sure there's nothing elevated. As a matter of fact, if there was an elevation, an elevated air sample, and we said, oh, we're not going to tell them. The lab is required to tell the state, and the state shows up. So there's no getting around it. You know what I mean? So you're not going to see anything funky with this, especially with our company. We would never do something like that anyway, but the state would be notified anyway. They would come in and say, we got a notification from Emersi, you had an elevated air sample, and it was at this location. How come you didn't tell us? So not only do we have to tell them, the lab tells them. So, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So after you're done in the summer, third week of summer,
Mhm.
August, and the construction starts, is it, that air is continually tested every single day during the construction part also?
No, that's totally different. Once the abatement's done, there's technically no hazard at that point,
Alright, so
from asbestos.
here's my follow-up
Yeah, yeah.
question then. With deconstruction,
Yep,
things are hidden behind walls and everything.
right.
What happens if something pops up and all of a sudden it's there? And-
Okay, so for
Just
instance,
be not-
no, it does happen, you're 100% right. So, once they remove the plaster, everything should be exposed. If there's something if there's a, I don't know, let's say there's a concrete block and there's pipe in there, you can't see it, they break the pipe, and now there's more asbestos on it in regards to insulation,
Yeah.
they would stop. They can't touch anything because they're not licensed to do it. They would let Palumbo know. We'd come in, the abatement contract come in, again, put it all in containment, remove it, then we'd have air samples going during that whole thing. Once it's done, it's cleared, then we turn it back over to them.
Thank you.
Okay? Yeah, no, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So how many projects like this have you done personally?
Me personally, 150.
And how many of these projects of the 150, were there any extreme conditions that were cause for worry?
I would say three. Three where I had to call the state and say, listen, these contractors are not listening to me, you need to come down here. When the state comes down, they impose a financial fine, right, which nobody wants. If it's really egregious, then the EPA comes, and they come with guns, and they take you away. So, thank God I've never had to deal with that, but I know there's been times, and I know colleagues of mine that had to deal with that, where contractors were doing things they shouldn't have done and got caught.
So how long have you been working with these contractors?
With
With the individuals that we,
Palumbo, I've worked on a bunch of different projects with them, I would say for about 5 years now.
yeah, so
Yeah,
any
yeah.
problems with those guys?
None. They don't do abatement.
We don't think.
Right, but
They're
I'm just saying-
construction managers, right? But the abatements, and the one thing I can definitely say about them is that they don't issue, what is it, RFPs or a bid to come out to companies that are sketchy. Which is good. The company that's actually doing the abatement is a very, very good company, and it's one of the ones that I love to work with because I know they do everything by the book. If I notice something, I say it, they stop and they correct it immediately.
So my same question would go to you. How many years have you had doing these kind of renovating of schools?
So, I've been doing K-12 construction now for 26 years.
Okay.
And out of the 26 years, every single year, there's been some type of abatement project. And in this particular case, we're not treating it any differently than we've done in the past. You put together a plan, you bid the plan, the contractor that has been awarded was, before we made a recommendation to the board, we sat down with that contractor, we did a page turn, so they understood the hard barriers, they understood the phasing, they understood the fact that we needed to be done prior to students and staff being back in the building. And like Mr. Martinez said, we have worked with this contractor for quite a few years in the past. They are a good hazardous material contractor. They actually when you look at pre-design, I work with them doing a lot of surveys through this building. So I spent 2 weeks in August of 2020. It was COVID, yeah, 2020. I was in the building with this contractor doing pre-demo surveys throughout the building. They're rock solid. They know the building, and I think we would never come and make a recommendation to the board unless we felt great about moving forward with that plan.
And so what are the other schools that you have actually done renovations of this magnitude and kind?
So, our districts, right now, we have, Newburgh, South Orangetown, North Rockland, Highland, Marlboro, New Paltz. We did 54 million at New Paltz. We are currently hired with Ulster County BoCEs, and they're super stringent in their qualification process. They have a $39 million project. We worked with Saugerties. When you look at Dutchess County, we work with, starting from, Columbia, Germantown, Red Hook, Rhinebeck, Poughkeepsie, Spackenkill, Wappingers, Pauling, Beacon. We've worked with all of these districts, and of course you guys are right with us, but this is all we do. Our focus is K-12. That's all we've ever done.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ed?
Just, I have a couple of questions. You said that, like, once the construction starts, then, there's a possibility that it might be in the pipes or something like that. Like, what happens at that point, and how do you stop the spread from, like, the spread of it, especially if there's students in the
Okay.
school at that time?
Okay, so let me address that one. So it all in the pipes, it wouldn't be in the
Okay.
water or anything along those
Either
lines. So,
way,
right, so it's just, it's insulation.
Mhm.
That would be stopped immediately, and it would be cordoned off and secured and then removed.
Okay.
So that's what would happen. But the kids wouldn't even be allowed in the school, because at that point, we would know, unless it was December and they had to open up a wall that we did not abate, and then they found something. That, again, there's nothing we could do at that point, because they already, there was a small exposure. We clean it, we critical it, we make sure that it's contained, and then we remove it. So the second we know it's there, we address it immediately. So we don't wait a week, or we don't let the kids walk by it. We know if let's say it's behind this wall and they happen to have hit a nail and something went through, and all of a sudden you see in white dust, okay, we gotta test it, make sure it's not hot. We call it hot, meaning that's asbestos in it. If it is, first of all, they seal it, we come in, we remove it, and then it's taken care of.
So there's, the only way of knowing if it's actually dust from asbestos or something is that by sight, and then it has to come back and be tested. Like,
Well, it has to be tested, correct.
Okay.
So like, I'll give you a perfect example. I was at Roundout, and they were asking me, they were right on the elbows of most of the pipes back in the day. They would put, it looks like a cast. So if you broke your arm, they put a cast on. So that's what it looks like.
Okay.
You see it, normally you're like, oh, that's hot, right? Because you don't see that very often. I tested it, it's negative.
Okay.
Because the only way you can tell is if it goes under a microscope. That's how they tell whether or not it's asbestos. So just because it's white dust doesn't mean it's asbestos.
And if I could add to that, the general demolition being done in the work area is not done under as stringent conditions as the asbestos abatement is, but it's still done under negative air. So there's still, scrubbers are still running while they're in there doing demolition and stuff. So that's a non-stop thing, because the workers can't be exposed to even silica. It's a level of silica they're allowed to be exposed to, and if you run a scrubber all the time or a negative air machine all the time, you don't have those issues. So, and that's behind a barricade, a hard barrier, so it can't get out until where the kids are. It would only be where the workers are. And the workers are all trained to know is if they come upon something that doesn't look right, they stop. First thing they do is stop right there. They go to their immediate supervisor, they call us, and we go in, and then we just shut the area down.
And thank you. And I just have like another question.
Yeah, sure.
During the construction part, and you said you did it some other schools in the area. Were the students in the schools while you were doing the construction on the buildings?
Doing general construction?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're separated. They're segregated areas, yeah.
And just if you could, like, were there any, were there any, unforeseen problems that came up that, I'm sure there were. I'm just,
Yeah.
I don't know too much about construction and what could happen or what might happen, so I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, what's gonna be going on when the kids are in the school and there's construction going on, and I'm just, a little concerned.
Yeah,
I can
well,
understand that.
with the barriers we have in place, they're not soundproof by any means, but they do have a threshold of sound and sound transmission allowable. So if it gets too loud and it's above, I believe it's 80 decibels, what happens is we just stop them from working and we work second shift. We have that in our contract documents with them, that if it's any disruption to the students, because students, it's primary, we take them out and we just come back at second shift.
But were there like any problems that did come up and you sort of had to sort of address during that time?
Usually they're minor inconveniences or stuff that usually can handle right in the house and stuff, yeah, but I don't remember anything. Like I said, I've been with these guys 5 years, I've never had anything major, knock wood, that happened, so I feel that we have a plan, like Lou said, you make a plan, you stick with that plan, and you go with it.
Dennis, so just correct me if I'm wrong. The area that you're gonna be doing the construction in is gonna be cordoned off from the students anyway.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's gonna be hard. Well, your students shouldn't even be near it, so
Yeah,
we should be
they're not.
good. It's almost like that door right there, right? It's gonna be sealed. Kids could be on the other side of that and be fine, and they could do the work in here.
The building isn't big, you know, it's not long like this building.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, more concerned about noise and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and like that kind of distraction. You know, the average kid, it's gonna be hard to get through those types of
Sure.
things, but we have all kinds of, you know, kids with different problems and,
Right.
you know, anxieties and different, you know, different learning problems and stuff like that. So that, you know, that's a real concern too with that kind of distraction, what kind of noise, or even like things going by the window, you know.
Right, no, absolutely.
You know,
Easily distracted.
Yeah.
stuff, it's just, you know, just all those things,
Yeah.
those little things.
I believe if there's an issue with that, they're gonna do second shift work, so those kids won't even be in school. They'll be in school during the day, but at night the construction will go on. Am I correct?
So it's a great question that you're asking. And when you look at the phasing of the project, the big part of the project right now is an addition, right? So we're really looking at separating ourselves, get the addition done, get the abatement done with the existing part of the building that's associated with that addition, right? Get that done this summer. The addition carries through. We hand over the addition, kids move into the addition. Then we move into the other spaces. So it's very defined. We're not just running around. So you asked a question about where we've done this. If you've been to New Paltz, we completed a $54 million project there. And specifically at the middle school, we did a 40,000 square foot addition, right? And then their existing facility was a 1920s building. So what we did, we moved the kids into the addition and we started moving through that 1920s. And the New Paltz board, as strong as these guys are, they were all over us. The community was just like you guys, concerned. And what we did was talked about the plan, and we talked about it monthly. We talked about what's happening, because you do have, your concerns are valid. You know, your kids are in the building. How do you teach? How do you continue to teach while we're building? And that's a big deal, right? So Dennis talked about ADDB. ADDB is your phone ringing. The old style phone, the ringing, right, that you picked up off that's ADDB. So we want to be below that. You know, we want to be below that in adjacent areas that we're doing construction. So our schedule will show any areas like that, we're doing that second shift. If we're trenching through a slab, coring, anything that's really going to affect, you know, program, we need to talk about that, right? Let's have the conversation, and we bid it that way. So we specifically bid it that way. So, you know, when you look at the prices of the contracts that came in, they might be a little high, but we put a lot of stringent parameters. These guys are not coming in freewheeling. We're controlling them. And I think that's really important. You know, I had my girls going through school when in Red Hook, when I was doing construction there, and I lived there. I lived there, because I had the same concerns. And, I wouldn't let that go,
And to piggyback on that, as far as like, I understand with students that have special needs, whatever, that there's not gonna be that much of a stimulus to them outside the building. The way the building's designed and what's going on, the front of the building is gonna be done over the summer. It's gonna have to be done over the summer. The back of the building is gonna be done over the summer. The part where the actual construction is gonna be, you can't see from the south end of the building to start. The addition is on the north end, this end of the building, right? And we're doing the north end first, so it's in the existing building, but you can't see what's going on. So shouldn't be that much of a distraction, and if there is, again, we'll do what we have to do, and we'll work second shift on that. That's, we're here to make sure that we get a building done, and there's no interference with, as little interference as possible with any educational processes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Can I just follow up on her question? So the scenario that, it's December, they go into a wall, dust falls out, you have to get it tested to see what it is. You seal it off until you find out what it is, or you don't?
Oh, well, yes, it'll be sealed.
Okay, so how quickly do you get the results back, like within 24 hours?
Yes.
And then if you come back and they are positive and the kids are still in the building, what happens to the kids?
What do you
Leave them
mean?
in the building while?
No, you can't do any of that abatement. If it was positive, cannot do abatement while the children are in the building. So it would be sealed, nobody be allowed into that area.
Okay.
We come in, we do the abatement, they would be, I guess, displaced or put somewhere else for the
Okay.
time being. It will be done after hours, because school's in session, or over a break, right? It all depends on what time of the year it was. But let's say it was October, right? So you don't have a break. So it would be done second shift. So it would be done after they're gone, start at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they would do the abatement and be done with it.
But the kids wouldn't be allowed back in the
Not
building
allowed
until
until,
it's fine?
not until it's clear, correct? Just like over the summer, they're not allowed in.
And to be clear though, the work is not, if a contractor ran into additional asbestos, it's in the construction zone. It's not where they're occupied. Again, we have a hard barrier, multiple layers of poly. So if we find out that there's an issue there, it gets stopped. And it's not just, it's not just the safety of the kids and the staff, but it's also the safety of the contractors. So when we stop work for everybody. So if they run into something on that side of the building, I say that side, the side that we're working, not in your side. We're never working where the kids are. We're working where the contractors are. If we do happen to find something, and it does happen, right?
Yeah.
There's unforeseen areas, so you run into that, we will stop. Hold up, let's figure things out.
And my last question is, how confident are you you're gonna get all of it done before school starts back up in September? That you get all the abatement done? Like, that seems like a lot, it's a big building.
That's why we pay.
Right, so it's two separate phases, one this year, one next year.
And you're confident it'll be all done before the kids go
They
back?
have to be, they have to be. There's no, if they have to work 3 shifts, they're gonna do it.
Okay.
So if I could just jump in, because that's a really, really good question, Connie. That was part of the bid process. So we put in the specifics of the timeline, and for some things like that, when you put in hard deadlines, that would affect someone's bid, because they have to factor in a percentage of how much overtime could I reasonably expect to put into this. So that's one piece of it. I know it was stated as far as the barrier that's separating the construction zone from where the students would be. Once again, I know it bears repeating. Abatement's happening over the summer, no one's in the building other than those that are working with the hazardous materials company and Mr. Martinez, who's monitoring that. Now, with that barrier, they use the analogy of those doors behind us. It is not equivalent to those doors. It is an airtight wall that, while it's not going to be permanent, it is installed as a permanent wall, if I can say it that way, Dennis and Lou.
Floor to deck.
Floor to ceiling,
Sealed
it
top and
is,
bottom.
it is sealed off. The students, staff, everyone that's there for school purposes is separated from that area that has been abated and has been cleared by a separate entity, Mr. Martinez. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's important, and I also want to let folks know, yeah, absolutely, we hear about the disruptions. We've also made it very clear that we want programming to be as normal as possible. And I informed Ms. Lopez, for those of you that don't know, Ms. Lopez is my secretary. I work with every day, and I informed her last week that I will be moving my space over to the middle school for next school year as well. So I will be on that campus every day, and for most of each day, other than things that I'll have to do at district office. But that's where I'll be calling home base. So, Mr. Murata, I just want to share that news with you.
You're always welcome.
Thank you.
There's another question.
Mrs. Jones?
Am I allowed to ask you a question, Mr. Rydell? Or is it just?
Sure. Yeah. We have the experts here as well.
So, I was just wondering, like, what the school day is gonna look like then. What the programs, the extracurricular activities, the sports programs, the different classes, set aside from math, English, social studies, and science, like, with half the part of the building maybe not being able to be used, like, what's the day gonna look like for our students, next year?
Sure, that's a great question. So that was really the work that has taken place with 2 committees for both of the spaces. So one of the things that came up, and we have some members of the team here, so they can certainly also shed some light on it. But specific to 7th grade at the middle school, Dawn, so they would be using all 3 floors, right? And we are working with a scheduling consultant, an outside agent that's helping us work through the scheduling so we can optimize it in both buildings as to what the programs look like. But the students, they'll get the technology, right? It won't look the same because we won't have the wood shop there for the first year, right? So we'll make plans for that so that those students next year, they'll get what they don't get at the middle school next year, they'll get it when they're in 8th grade. So their middle school experience will look the same, just the timing. The family and consumer science will still take place. World languages still in the mix. I know that that's 8th grade. I keep switching back and forth. The sciences, same concept. We'll be using the science labs for next year. We'll have that. The art program, Mr. Murata, anything that I'm missing? The health, 8th grade, yep, would be up here. So there's no impact to any of the Part 100 components. As a school counselor, that would resonate with you, right? So no effect on what currently falls under Part 100 regulations as far as the instructional requirements for middle school.
And sports?
Same concept. So we would have, we understand that there'll be some changes to transportation because there are other factors that come into play. Let's say a student lives within walking distance to the middle school, but their 8th grade program is now at the 209 complex. That changes some of the transportation. So we recognize that there may be some impact to that, but we also recognize we're going to have to, most likely, I would say for the duration of this project, have to transport students over to the 209 complex for most sports and activities. That would be 7th and 8th grade. And I think you'll also know, Ms. Jones, that we will offer duplicate programs for those that matter to students that we have good enough participation in on both campuses. So if there's something that students are interested in, we can do things along that nature as well. Where for the first year, where there will be a shortcoming in the plan, would be for physical education, particularly during the winter months. Right? During the warmer months, that's less of an issue, but since the current gymnasium will be in that construction zone for that first year, that would be impacted. It would be a non-traditional format. The subsequent year, it'll be the opposite because we would actually have a brand new full-size competition-sized gymnasium and new classrooms, so it'll be an entirely different look.
I just have one other thing. So gym space is just already with the middle school gym is so hard to get. through, for sporting and for practices. Was there any thought of maybe busing kids to HBE and like back to like the 209 or somewhere where they could get a ride home if there wasn't enough gym space for the modified sports?
Absolutely, and that also predates this project. So that offer has been given to our athletic department all along if you need transportation. This year, fortunately, that wasn't an ask because transportation was difficult, right? As far as, we had to really maximize all of our routes because of driver shortages. But that's absolutely possible. It's certainly the last, resort because of the time it would take. So you're impacting, practice times, but absolutely, Dawn. And that's a great question.
Anything else?
I just had to clarify something. So just to clarify, because I think it was a misunderstanding, because the question that was asked by this nice lady over here. During construction, the air quality is going to be just as good through those scrubbers as the abatement part, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all. I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else?
One last thing.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
No.
So the one thing was mentioned about the ongoing testing. So we will speak with the board, also get some further consultation from Mr. Martinez as far as recommendations, and a final decision wouldn't have to be made until into the summer. But the ongoing testing through the school year, again, it's the belt and suspenders, I think was the analogy. So that is something that we will be going to the Board of Education with. Mr. Onfrey.
Yeah, I want to thank Lou and Dennis for supplying the detail on the barrier walls. That helps a lot with the understanding for myself and for the board. And Mr. Martinez, a lot of the questions that I had about asbestos, I think you've addressed, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
No more than anybody in this room, we're all concerned about the kids.
Absolutely.
So, and I know at the last meeting, I just want to say this, at the last meeting, I was very vocal about my feeling about the safety of the kids. I had the opportunity to speak to a couple parents. I just want to make one point very clear, that I don't want the public to misconstrue my concern for the safety of the construction project and the way it's managed with the referendum for the additional monies. Because of everything that's going on in the economy, the price of materials, the price of labor, the prices have escalated beyond control. And that money is very important to get this project done the proper way. And the only
time.
Yes.
And time.
And the best scenario I can give you to the average person would be, it would be like building a house and getting almost done and saying, we don't have enough for a kitchen, so you're not gonna have a kitchen in your home. So, I know it's a lot of money. It's the way that the market is, it's the way the economy is, and that referendum is, in my estimation, is very vital to this project being done properly.
Right, and it's still keeping us with no tax impact, because you've paid the taxes over time, and we've been very conscientious about our money, and we're able to do it, thank goodness, because it may not happen in a lot of other school districts. But I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I want to thank the three of you for coming this evening and clarifying a lot of the questions that were brought up. But I want to personally say that I would never intentionally, nor do I think anybody sitting here elected by you people, would ever, or the administration, would ever intentionally put any of our students, faculty, construction managers, anybody at risk. We're not in the business to do that. We're here to educate our kids. And I think this project, while I'm not sitting on this board 20 years right now, I've spent over 20 years sitting on this board at one time or another, and I attended school here. And for at least the last 25 years, we've talked about addressing the middle school. We need a building that's conducive to educating our children. And I expect there will be some disruption, but I'm confident that the people that are behind the project will keep that to a minimum and to a minimal impact to our students. So I, like Bill, would like to encourage everyone to come out and vote for the additional monies and know that it's money well spent on our future, and that we're willing to say we're going to do the very best we can for our kids and everybody involved. So I just want to say thank you. I didn't have an opportunity to be here last week, so thanks. Anyone else?
I'll just wrap up. Again, thank you to each of you, and particularly with Dennis and Lou Rodriguez. We have meetings weekly or at least bi-weekly, and I don't have the role of being at that meeting for construction advice or direction, right? It's all about, my role there is operations, parameters that the school district would find acceptable, and then it's about the students and our staff. And I think these two gentlemen will tell you that throughout the process, that's what I advocate for, and from there we learn what each of us can and can't do in the process, and they've been absolutely, they're student-centered, and that goes to the fact that all they do, I know it's poor grammar, but the only thing they do is K through 12 construction, which I think carries a lot of weight, and they are in nearly every school district over the past several years doing these projects. The last thing, there was a letter that was sent to the Board of Education that was signed by many individuals, and one of the things was about the transparency. So if that's the sentiment, then I'll apologize for that. We've been trying to build plans and revise plans based on what took place in the bidding process, and there were throughout this spring, and that bidding process really in some shape or form just wrapped up last week with Mr. Martinez's firm being hired, but we had to go back out to a bid and then from there see what we can plan for next school year. So we don't have every room assignment for next year. We literally just finished that 2 weeks ago as far as what rooms we're going to use, the allocation, and that was through a lot of hard work by the committee. So absolutely, would we have preferred to put more information out early on? Yes, we would have, and I apologize if that is, what folks went away with. I sincerely apologize for that. We will do several different formats in order to keep everyone updated now as the plans are finalized, timelines are finalized. We'll do something before we actually do groundbreaking, maybe a town hall format. That was a great suggestion from earlier this evening. And we'll do an update again before we have students come back to the school in September. So our goal is to keep the community and also the board, which has been apprised of the plans throughout, including when we had to pivot and go out to rebid. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear and just give that level of confidence to our community. And so with that, again, thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is that of public comment. We have 2 people who signed up this evening. First one, Jimmy McMenemy. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. While you're on the way to the podium, I'll just announce the rules of public comment. Okay, hold on. You must restrict your comments to no more than 5 minutes, and I will ask that Jason be the timekeeper, please. You may not discuss in public comment certain topics which include the following: particular employees or students, health or medical issues, discipline, hiring or firing of an individual, labor negotiations, and litigation. That being said, please identify yourself and what you're here to speak about, please.
Hi, my name is Jim McMenemy. I appreciate all the feedback we got today. Between the board, the construction companies, a lot of my questions were answered, and I appreciate it. I just hope that a high level of transparency is going to continue throughout every phase of this project, between the construction companies, the board, and the public. On that, as Mr. Rydell said, we'd also like to keep updated on what classrooms are going to be used for what. A lot of my questions had to do with extracurricular activities, computer labs, intramural sports. So I just hope that the board will get that information out to the public as the year goes on. But that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're all partners in this together, okay? Next person is Ian Horsham. Hold on one second, Ian. Mr. Rydell will respond to Mr. McMenemy.
I'm sorry, Mr. McMenemy, I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, that's absolutely, we will have public relations push throughout this, just so folks do know. And we will also have links on our website that will be specific for capital project updates. When it comes to the after-school activities, whether it's intramurals, really any of the 3 A's, right? The arts, athletics, or academics, those are top priorities. And I think many of the people in this room could attest, it's where I've made a priority over the past several years. So we will continue to offer those opportunities. If there's a hurdle, we'll figure it out between coaches, administrators, etc. So I appreciate your comments, but you let me know when we're falling short, and we'll fix it.
I've talked before. I'm not quiet.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, though.
No, absolutely.
Just with that too, as the construction guy said.
Listen, could you? I know you said you speak loud, but we need the public to hear what you're saying too, so that if they have the same question, they might be able to get it answered. Thank you.
Sorry, real quick, it was mentioned that as all construction projects, unforeseen problems arise. And I just hope the board is prepared for any contingency plans that may have to come into effect because of that.
Yes, we absolutely are aware of that, and we also have backup plans for scheduling. But as far as the classrooms go, just to give you an overview, so when we're talking about the current middle school, we'll be using the half of the building from where the center stairwell is. That will be sealed off. That'll go up to, it'll be sealed off on the gym side of that stairwell, and that second floor will then be connected to the third floor with a stairwell to there. So we'll be using that side of the building. I know they were saying the south side. I'll say the auditorium side. That will be the half of the building that will be used for 7th grade programming. And as far as the 209 complex goes, basically once you go right out of this cafeteria, a couple doors down, there's a small office. That will be an office for middle school, and then it'll then go down that center hallway right behind the auditorium. That will all be middle school classrooms. The assistant principal's office will be where the ISS room, if you're familiar with that, which is right near the music rooms. But again, it's right in the center of that hallway. It actually worked out very well. And we'll go down that hallway to the end. So basically this whole stretch on the first floor will be middle school classrooms, and then going down into the center hallway where we currently have 2 high school science classrooms on the first floor. Those will be mainly used for middle school classes, science classes, and similarly upstairs as needed. But we're trying to keep it where the 8th grade classes are all connected, so that way all the support systems for 8th graders are all connected. And also the plan we have is for the 8th graders to come in through the ASK side in the morning, because ASK is not in session at that point, and high school coming into high school, just to really also reduce some of the congestion.
Thanks, sir.
I don't know if I answered the part you wanted. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, the next person who signed up is Ann Horsham. And Ann, I'll state to you, just state your name and the reason here, and Jason will be the timekeeper.
Okay, hi everybody. Ann Horsham, resident, have 3 kids that went through the school district. My baby's 30, so you know it's been a while. But I came tonight to talk about, I was so happy when I saw off of the 209 complex, when you're driving on 209, I saw the board advertise the UPK, Universal Pre-Kindergarten, the UPK registration. So that brought me back in history. I was on the board, I'm going back like 10 years ago, when the only UPK that I knew about was Project Discovery, the Easter Seals program on East Main Street. So when I saw the sign, I thought, wow, this is so great. This has never happened that the district, highlighted the UPK. So I was so happy that I went to see Kristen at the main office because I wanted to tell, how this is so great. And then I found out that the school district also is having a universal pre-K. So anyway, back 10 years ago, I remember when I was on the board, the superintendent had given us a map of the community with all of the community pre-Ks. So I looked at that map and I said, where is Project Discovery? So that, I've been through 3 superintendents, so I won't say which one it was, said, what is that? And it wasn't, Easter Seals program, Project Discovery, wasn't new. It was already there like 10 years. And the superintendent didn't know, so I was shocked, that he didn't know. I said, that's because the funds for the UPK go through the school district. So it was surprising to me that a superintendent wouldn't know about the program. Anyway, I only mentioned that negative only to highlight the positive, because when I went by that sign, I was thrilled to see it. And then thrilled to find out that not only you now have a relationship, I'm sure I'm really out of the loop a long time, but I've learned that you have a relationship, a very good one, with Project Discovery, and that you work hand in hand with them, and I would love to know more about the coming pre-K. I don't know if you'll have a chance to talk about it tonight, but I think that it's just, I'd like to just highlight how wonderful that is that now you guys are, working together, which, maybe you're going to tell me that you've been doing that a long time, I just don't know. But because my history goes back like 10 years ago, I'm talking about when, the superintendent didn't even know about the program. And the only suggestion that I would have for the sign is, I don't know if a lot of people passing by would know what a UPK is, the Universal Pre-K. I know it's a lot of letters to get on that sign, but I just thought it would be a great way to advertise it for like grandmas like me who maybe have their first grandchild. You don't know, you're like learning all this stuff. And I know you sent a letter home and it has Universal Pre-K on it, but I think a lot of people might not know what UPK stands for. That's it. I just came to say hooray. I remember the day and things change, and that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Orchard.
So thank you for the kind words. So as far as the relationship with the school and Project Discovery, that's a two-way street. Kylie Trigani oversees that program, and in my opinion, is awesome. And so she helps that relationship, right? To work with someone like her is certainly a benefit. They are our students, right? They just happen to be our youngest students. So that's where that piece comes in. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that Erica Wallington, our PPS director, is instrumental in all of this as well. Okay, so she's our liaison to the state, and she'll tell you I ask a lot of questions, so she has to call often to get that. But yeah, we're excited. We were hoping to have 2 sections of UPK on our campus for the upcoming school year. We're going to start with 1, and then we'll see where that goes. We have had a good response on our registration, which is through Family ID, but we've had good response with that. And one of the key things, and perhaps this could be connected to some of the questions that Mrs. Jones and Mr. McMenemy stated, which is, part of our role is to find out where are there maybe a hurdle or obstacle. And I know it sounds cliche, but I use that often. And one of the hurdles for individuals going to pre-kindergarten can sometimes be, well, one thing would be the scheduling of it, right? Is it half day or is it full day? So we want full day programs for everyone. The other piece is transportation. If you can't transport your child there, then they wouldn't be able to go. So what is included in this model is transportation will be provided. So we are in the process of purchasing the appropriate seats for the buses, and we built that into how the funding would flow is the transportation component. So that will give as many of our youngest students as possible that very essential kickoff to their academic career and their social skill career, if that's a career. But that's just what I wanted to add to that. So I hope I answered any of the questions you may have had, Annie, but great comments.
And I just would like to say one more thing about, let me
Can
go
you
over
come
here.
up to the mic, go ahead?
Yeah. A family like mine, I have my oldest is 38, and she was born with special needs. So at that time, there was no Project Discovery. It didn't exist yet. And she had to go over the mountain. The car came, and then eventually a little bus came, and she couldn't go to her local school. She, the kids in the neighborhood, they all went somewhere else. She went over the mountain. So with Project Discovery, I know they're going to expand in their new site. I believe they're going to have full-time too, because even with Project Discovery, a child with as many needs as my daughter had at the time wouldn't be able to go there. She would have to go over the mountain. So it's really thrilling that there will be, I believe in both places you're talking about full day, and I'm thinking in Project Discovery it will happen too. For placements for children with those kinds of needs, that they could stay in their own community, which is so wonderful. So
Correct. So
yeah.
just to answer your question, it would be full day in both programs, and that's how the reimbursement piece will come in, and that's how we know what our target number of tuition slots that we have. So so it would be full day at both programs.
And I'm wondering, the level of with the disability, if the programs are be comparable. Like I don't really know.
Yes. So they do have special education programming at the Project Discovery, and that would continue. So it really depends on the individual needs of a particular student, and they go through the CPSE process,
Right.
of which they then determine which program would benefit that student the most.
So I don't know, it's just so exciting to me, and like should be shouted from the rooftop that this is happening, and it opens up the doors for lots of kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, the next item is administrative reports. Do you have anything additional? I'm sure you do.
I believe I said enough. If anyone has any questions for me, I'll certainly entertain them. Thank you.
Ms. Walkowitz? Or Dr. Walkowitz, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to announce that we are working on the Seal of Civic Readiness. Our partner is the Orange County Youth Bureau. So that will be another graduation option for our students coming next year. So we're applying, deadline is August 1st to apply. So I just want to thank our committee and our partnerships with the community. So good things to come.
Thank you. Mr. Tim?
Mr. Tim is all set, thank you.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is the consent items. These include minutes of the Board of Education regular meeting of April 21st, 2022, CPSE meeting minutes, annual reviews for 22-23 for 4/8 and 4/19. CPSE meeting minutes for 3/28, 4/7, 4/8, and 4/21. CSE meeting minutes for 3/29, 4/1, 4/18, 4/19, 4/20, 4/21, 4/22, and 4/25-22. CSE meeting minutes, annual review for 22-23 for 3/28, 4/1, 4/7, 4/8, 4/19, 4/20, 4/21, and 4/22-22. Treasurer's financial report for March, and disposal of outdated, irreparable, or unusable equipment. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Bill Onofre, second by Flo. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, personnel employment items. These include resignation, instructional staff position 290, special education teacher, termination of employment, employee number 4974, appointment, coaching vacancy 2378, varsity spring track assistant coach, appointment, instructional staff vacancy 2408, position 80, probationary social studies teacher, appointment, instructional staff vacancy 2416, position 259, English teacher probationary, appointment, instructional staff substitute teachers for the 21-22 school year, amendment to board docs personnel agenda item from April 5th, and amendment to confidential secretary and personnel assistant employment contracts for the 22-23 school year. I would like a motion and a second to approve these personnel employment items, please.
I'll move it.
Kara?
Second.
Second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 9 is action item, so 9A, renewal of the Marshall and Sterling Consulting Agreement for workers' compensation consultants. May I have a motion and a second to bring this item to the floor, please?
I'll move it. Second.
Bill Onofre, second by Bill Harris. Are there any questions? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 9B is policy. First reading of policy numbers 4310, 4320, 4330, 4410, 5110, 5120, 5130, 7210, and 7552. May I have a motion and a second to bring these to the floor, please? Bill Harris?
I'll second.
Second by Judy. Okay, so I have the report here. There's 9 policies up for first reading tonight. They were all discussed at our committee meeting on April 6th, and most were during policy review. As in the past, with 2 of them, the only suggested change was the personalization with mention of Port Jervis. These were 4320 on superintendent/board of education relations and 5130 on budget adoption. In policy 4310 on superintendent of schools, we did personalize it, but we also removed the word plant and replaced it with facility before expansion and renovation in letter I. In policy 4330 on administrative staff, we personalized it and then removed or corrected outdated titles for administrators. In policy 4410 on professional development opportunities, we did personalize it but also added or designee as to who could approve conference attendance by administrators. In policy 5110 on budget planning and development, we corrected the plural facilities on the first line of page 2. In letter C on the same page, we changed the lengthy list of possible administrative titles to all administrators and added agreements after collective bargaining to have it read better. In policy 5120 on school district budget hearing, we removed the beginning of the second paragraph on page 2 as it was dated. In policy 7210 on student evaluation, promotion, and placement, Dr. Walkowitz had asked that for clarity, we use a specific date on page 3, paragraph 2, as for when parents need to be notified regarding possible retention. This is because the elementary schools are now on a trimester versus quarterly marking periods. We picked by April 15th. Policy 7552 on student gender identity is a new policy suggested by Erie One BOCES in their March policy pulse. This was originally suggested back in August 2015, but after consultation with our lawyers, it was decided that it was not required and was unnecessary at that time. They resent it to districts in response to the recent Gender Recognition Act, which amended Civil Rights Law Section 64 to require districts to update an individual's name on any document or record issued or maintained by the district upon the submission of a name change order. Failure to comply would put us in violation of New York State human rights law and civil rights law. We again contacted legal, who reviewed their suggested policy, and we were told to go ahead with its adoption at this time. Were there any questions regarding any of those specifics? Okay. so all in favor of having the first read for this? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item is discussion and review. So the first item is the Port Jefferson City School District Board of Education 22-23 meeting calendar, which is in draft format. I believe it's in our packet, so. It pretty much models this one, correct? What we did this year? Yeah. The big question was, because we're a small city school district, we have to have our reorganization meeting during the first week of July. So the question is, do we want to schedule it on July 5th, which is a Tuesday, and our normal day to meet, or on Thursday, July 7th?
I would rather the Thursday, only because if people are away for that weekend, it gives them that extra day to get back.
It doesn't matter to me either way, but let's go with the Jason, what's your thought?
I'm fine for Thursday.
Thursday, Kara?
Yeah, Thursday's better, I'm actually
Hello?
away.
Bill?
I'll be coming home that day, so.
Judy?
We'll wait for you.
Be okay.
All right, so why don't we do the Thursday, July 7th? Now, we have one meeting normally scheduled in September, but we've always reserved that very first week just in case we have last minute appointments to do. So we can adopt this as a second meeting in September, the September 6th, which is the first day of school, and we can always cancel it at a later date if we don't have something to put on.
Schedule it.
I think we should schedule it, because I can't remember a time when we didn't have an appointment or something we had to address at the first.
Right.
I think we should hold it.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Then again, just take note, Thursday, April 25th, again, that's a Thursday meeting because of the BoCES budget vote. And then Wednesday, May 17th will be the day after the election of canvass of the vote. Are there any other dates on there that anybody has any questions about? Does this follow the BoCES calendar again? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we can put this on the agenda for adoption at the next meeting? Okay. You want your calendar? Yes, you can have it. Okay. And we need to discuss or come up with a possible date or dates for a board retreat. It's really something we should do. Maybe sometime in August. I don't know if anybody's got specific dates. If you want to email your conflicts for the month of August, maybe to Krista, and we can come up with a date.
That would be best.
Do you want to stick to like a Tuesday evening like we're used to doing? Would you be willing to do some other night? I don't know. So,
Is it two nights or one night?
well, depending on what time you start and what we're looking at stuff, sometimes it can take a while. So really, it's the pleasure of the board. I mean, I don't work now, so I can work around that. So, but whatever you choose.
I would prefer Tuesday night unless I'm very busy.
Okay, so let's see where the conflicts lie and see if we can come up with something where everybody can make it to the meeting. It is an important thing to do, it's for team building, it's just really good to do. It helps us with setting goals and that sort of thing also.
If I may.
Sure.
Yeah, so as far as the retreat goes, from the administrative perspective, we would prefer it over two sessions. That way the board could have time for their own work that they would like to do as far as professional development that you would like us to help facilitate. But what we can do is send out a Google form that you'll be able to respond easily if that's more convenient for you. Otherwise, when you get the Google form, if it's something you don't want to fill out, you can just send back whatever your conflicts are. That'll just help us quickly get it, get the information and schedule this. But the goals are central, and also how we could demonstrate success of those goals in the subsequent year. So, I got the whole, we rolled over goals, so to speak, but I do think we have to look at those and also, what are some things that we would want to see in order for us to attain those goals. So, sorry for going long on that. I just wanted
No, that's fine.
just stress that 2 sessions would be ideal.
Okay. All right, so Google, or you'll send the form out, Kristen? Okay. All right. Any other comments on any of that? No? Okay. All right, so the next item is board committee reports. I did policy already. Are there any other committee reports?
No.
Nothing? Okay. Board member comments. We'll start with you, Jason.
I have none, thank you.
Kara.
I'm sure Mr. Harris will speak more about this, but I just wanted to say how much I thoroughly enjoyed attending Guys and Dolls, the middle school musical production this weekend. It was fantastic. And I just appreciate the community members coming out to ask important questions in regard to the safety of our kids, because and I have a child who's also going into the middle school in the fall, and you know, I sit here as a board member, but primarily as a parent, when that's the lens that I look at this from. So I want you to know that this is a partnership, and we're you know, as Debbie said, we're in this together. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Judy.
Yeah, I too would like to comment on the safety of the children from the very start of this whole project, from when the community voted on it. I definitely had a platform on the safety for the children. I'm glad that we were able to have these guys come here, make things a little clearer. I just want to express that it's very important that we pass this because the timeline of this is the most important safety feature for these kids and teachers and faculty. Because if we don't get this passed in this timeline, we can't start what we need to start in the summer. And that is the key to keeping everybody safe and good. And I'd also like to express, Teacher Appreciation Week, and let you know how much you're appreciated.
Mr. Howard.
I too would like to echo what Judy just said. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of our teachers for what you do every day, all day. And here at the district, we also recognize our staff as well during Teacher Appreciation Week. So from everyone that cleans the rooms, that feeds you, teaches you, thank you very much. And also, I want to thank everybody that came out to support the middle school musical this past weekend, Guys and Dolls. It was very successful. It was so good having all 4 of our drama clubs be able to be on the stage live again. So again, thank you for all of your support, and it was a great show.
Mr. Andre.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Mrs. Santini.
Yes. It's working. It's working. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. And as I've said, and you know I've said it many times before, thank you for all you do, the whole district. 2 weeks. Tonight is the vote. Please come out and vote. Please come out and approve the budget and the propositions, because that's what we're here for. You know, if it wasn't, I'd be the first one to be walking the other light. Right, Annie? And I just say, I think it's such a worthwhile cause that everybody's in this together. And in 2004, okay, I'll go again. In 2004, when I first came on the board, I swore I would never put another penny into that middle school. I'm sorry. And it's the truth, right, William?
Yes.
And it just needs so much work. And I'm just so happy that we're going to finally do something. How many years later? But we're doing it, and I thank you. That's all.
Okay. All right, I said my piece on the construction project and the referendum, and I too would like to say that unfortunately I didn't get to go to the musical because we were away, but I did see a lot of clips, and boy, those kids were so cute. And on my way here tonight, it was just so refreshing to see the parking lots packed, and I knew it wasn't for the board meeting. I knew it was because of all the athletic fields being covered out there, and it's just absolutely great to see all the kids out there doing that again. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to every one of the people who touches the lives of our children. You teachers are rock stars in this building. We've overcome a lot in this district, not the building. We've overcome a lot. We've got other things to overcome. But I want to tell you, I appreciate everything you do every single day. And With that being said, I'll read the dates to remember, unless Mr. Rydell has anything else he needs to say.
Okay, so I just wanted to just clarify something when it comes to the proposition. Ms. Amato mentioned the importance of the vote. It does not actually affect the timeline. It actually affects the scope of the work. So phase 1 has already gone out to bid. That was the rebid process I explained. Those contracts are already in effect. What the increase in authorization, that $10 million, that we're not saying we're going to use $10 million, it's up to $10 million, that's for actually phase 2 of the project. The larger portions of phase 2, and that's all on the 209 complex here, that would be converting the current ASK cafeteria into a relatively small auditorium, converting 2 classrooms on the other side of the kitchen, right next to us, converting that back into the cafeteria for what will be the then middle school, as well as the site work, in other words, the athletic fields that will be behind the school. You can see photos that have been, obviously altered by our architects and designers to show what that layout would look like. That's all on our website under the capital project link. But that's what will be affected with the potential authorization or not authorizing the proposition. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then, I was remiss in not mentioning Teacher Appreciation Week, and so certainly we celebrate them. But we also want to appreciate one individual teacher that's here this evening on our board agenda for this very long meeting. They're not always this long, Mr. Rizzo, but you learned a lot about our district tonight, which is very good.
Right.
But anyway, we have Anthony Rizzo here. He was just approved tonight as a social studies teacher, and this gentleman is passionate about social studies and history. That came out in the interview, passionate. So, and then I'll just end with not only is this Teacher Appreciation Week, but tomorrow's also Nurses Appreciation Day, and it's not.
The 11th is school nurses. School
Okay,
nurses.
but it's Nurses Appreciation Day. National. So I did want to just accentuate that our nurses, pre-COVID, went to great lengths to ensure the safety of our students, but certainly their just tremendous skill set was evident all throughout. So I just wanted to recognize that. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is dates to remember and next meeting date. So for the dates to remember between May 4th and May 18th, we have tomorrow, Wednesday, May 4th, High School Honor Society induction dinner and ceremony. This is by invitation only at 6 p.m. here at the high school. Thursday, May 5th, Kite and Roll Award ceremony at 10 a.m. at the middle school, and the high school powder puff game, time to be determined at Chase Field. Saturday, May 7th is the SAT test here at the high school at 7:30 in the morning. Wednesday, May 11th, National Junior Honor Society induction ceremony, 6 p.m. at the middle school. Friday, May 13th, District Art Show, 6 to 8 p.m. at the high school cafeteria. Tuesday, May 17th is the Port River City School District budget vote and board election from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the high school, middle school, and HBE, and the high school band concert at 7 p.m. here in the high school auditorium. Wednesday, May 18th is the next Board of Education meeting on the campus of the board at 7 p.m. here in the high school cafeteria. Okay, at this time I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session for purposes of discussing
Contracts and personnel.
contracts and personnel, thanks. Mr. Honorary, second by Mr. Harris, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll take about a 5-minute recess. Do you accept action after the meeting?
No action.
There is no anticipated action after the meeting, but Mr.
We'll use the back room.
Okay. All right, so everybody have agreed.